From being called a historical version of Gossip Girl to the blandest acting anyone's seen since Twilight, these are some of the reasons why everyone hates Bridgerton. Addressing the biggest elephant in the room, why is Lady Whistledown's character like the Regency era's Gossip Girl? That's some lazy writing right there. Fans of the show quickly turned against it as season 1 went on, because the whole plotline was just trying to figure out who she was. Sure, for people looking for a lighthearted period piece, it was fun for a while, but you can't just beat a dead horse and expect people to enjoy it. At least the Gossip Girl characters had some other drama going on in their lives, other than trying to figure out who Gigi was. These characters were laughably boring. Gossip Girl worked because the world had never seen a bunch of rich teenagers spread lies about each other. You can't put them in 18th century dresses and expect the same formula to work in 2023. And just like the teen trash show, Bridgerton is shallow and vapid, with nothing of substance to show for it. It pretends to shed light on hard-hitting issues like sexism and classism, but never really hits the mark. Lady Whistledown starts out as the voice of truth, using her mysteriousness to talk about classism in society. But halfway through the first season, it becomes an excuse to gossip about the scandals of the ton. The show is a hard pass for most people. And while we're on the topic, let's talk about Bridgerton's half-baked attempt to address the world's bigger problems, like solving racism during the Regency era. Multiple threads on Reddit were bashing the show for skipping over the very real racism that was widespread in those times. A lot of media critics spoke up about it too, and said it was disrespectful to Black people who actually suffered during that time to just have racism solved. In the storyline, Queen Charlotte, a Black woman, marries the king, and this magically allows all Black people to be given positions of wealth and power. Everybody knows that's impossible. They should have let it be and pretended that it was a color-blind adaptation of history, like 2019's David Copperfield. Another glaring problem was that, aside from Black people, there were no other races in positions of power. This ticked people off because the show was gunning to be more racially inclusive, but forgot all other ethnicities of the world. Sure, there's your token Indian Sharma sisters, but Latin people were completely left out. I mean, the least they could have done was cast Sophie as a Latina. It's not something I would have expected from Shonda Rhimes, who's directed hit shows like Grey's Anatomy that had all types of characters in it. She really missed the mark with Bridgerton's racial diversity. The thing is, fans could have lived with the fact that Bridgerton ignored racism, but it was confusing that sexism was still somehow alive and well. Everybody hated how women being second-class citizens back in the Regency era was being exploited for the storyline. So the queen can be Black, but Daphne had to suffer through an arranged marriage? The women in the show just talk about men and marriages. Even the queen is more concerned about the gossip in the paper than state affairs. The misogyny is clear as day to a lot of Twitter users who rant about it on the daily, that the women in Bridgerton are just objectified. They're put in these historically inaccurate tight dresses just to please the male audience. I mean, even historical fantasy needs to have some element of believability in it, right? And when the women are allowed to take back some power, it's in some really messed up way. Daphne, for example, wanted a kid, so she went against her husband's wishes and tricked him into impregnating her. The show depicted it as some act of empowerment on her part, but Twitter users were outraged. They called it out for what it was: coercion and assault. That's not empowerment, it's downright disgusting. Storyline aside though, fans are really worked up about the soundtrack of the show too. It was cool and quirky in the beginning to have old-timey covers of modern tracks. But it quickly became super cringy. Fans thought it was fun when they were doing covers of Taylor Swift and Ariana Grande, but it turned into a snooze fest in season 2, with stripped versions of fun songs. According to Reddit, the soundtrack became as slow and boring as the plot progression itself. After the initial fun of the orchestral covers had worn off, critics dubbed them gimmicky and cringy. According to them, the music just ruined the historical vibe of the show. They said the fusion trend of modern with historical just isn't a formula that works anymore. It looked like Bridgerton was trying too hard to keep up with popular music trends and had to rely on clout to attract people to watch it. That really made the show's ratings tank big time. One fan was especially colorful with their criticism and said, "You can't just throw a Thank You Next violin cover at a TV show and expect it to hit." There was major trolling on Twitter too, where people were like, "Bridgerton just didn't have the copyright to use the originals, so they just used these violin covers." Talk about embarrassing. I mean, it makes sense. The production's only gonna work if the writing is actually good, but everyone hates most of the characters written into the show. According to Reddit and Twitter, most of them are just plain insufferable.
Exasperation, perhaps. Vexation, most definitely. The only feeling you are in fact capable of engendering, my lord, is that of discontent. Do not tell me
stand still,
what
damn
to
it.
do!
People started watching the show for Daphne and Simon, but it was clear after episode 3 that both of them had zero personality, let alone chemistry. By the end of season 1, the only character everyone seemed to barely tolerate was Penelope Featherington.
My mother swears we are ruined. But what of Colin?
Season 2 had better characters, but with several weird inconsistencies. For one, Kate Sharma was incredibly mean to Lady Danvers, which made absolutely no sense for her character arc. And her dynamic with Lady Mary wasn't even properly established, let alone explored. They could have done so much with the three of them bonding, but nope. Penelope's character also went really downhill in season 2. I mean, you figure out that she's the mysterious Lady Whistledown, but Penelope's personality doesn't match with her at all. Their tones are worlds apart.
Perhaps I will come forward one day.
And a lot of fans picked up on that and criticized Bridgerton for it. And if Phoebe Dynavor's character Daphne wasn't boring enough, by wearing the same blue dress throughout the first season, the actress made sure she was. She could be happy, sad, or breaking down, but you'd never be able to tell. There was even buzz on Reddit that the actress who played Kate Sharma, Simone Ashley, was too inexperienced for a role this big.
You must know it is hardly ideal. There seems to be no place in society for us except at the edge of things.
And her on-screen partner, Anthony, played by Jonathan Bailey, had to basically carry their chemistry.
It was not.
You were the one who then looked at me.
You looked at me.
Not in the way that you did.
And how exactly did I look?
People were brutal about Simone's acting, saying she stays blank throughout the show and overacts. Others said it was painful to watch her, cause her acting had no depth to it.
Ladies do not hunt.
Do not or are not allowed to.
Her only saving grace was that one eyebrow thing she does that gets you in the feels every time. But it isn't nearly enough to be calling her a really great actress. So if the main character of the second season isn't filling in her role properly, do you even have a good show anymore? And don't even get fans started on Lord Featherington's accent. Is he British? Is he American? Is he some weird thing in between? According to some, the sudden accent changes would often ruin the whole flow of the dialogue. So, there you have it, folks. From the world's most boring performances to the show just being a historical Gossip Girl reboot, these were some of the reasons why fans hate Bridgerton.